You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com. We are supported by listeners like you. Donate per month or make a one-time donation through PayPal or Patreon at wearelibertarians.com. Join in on the conversation. Visit the sidebar at wearelibertarians.com and join our Facebook group, meet other listeners, and get our daily news dump.
The Boss Hog of Liberty podcast is the latest hit on the We Are Libertarians Network. Each week, Jeremiah Morrill and Dakota Davis explore life in Henry County, Indiana.
It's a show about our circle of friends, public officials, and our experiences. 80% observation, life, humor, and 20% politics. Boss Hog of Liberty is the day-to-day happenings of Henry County, Indiana, which is just like your community. Add us on iTunes and sample us today.
Dear Leader would want you to.
The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is Liberty. Each week we strive to bring you the best guests in talk radio. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad delivers weekly interviews of noteworthy politicians, experts, and activists. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is bringing the party to the Libertarian Party and launching ideas in your direction. Check us out at johnnyrocketlaunchpad.com. You can hear me, Kurt Nelson, and the beautiful Heather Nixon talk about the ideas of liberty. Rock and roll.
Hey guys, this is Roger Paxton, and if you're fed up with the government running every single aspect of your life, but you're not listening to the Lava Flow podcast yet, then what's wrong with you? Check us out at thelavaflow.com, or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every single episode.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
Welcome to We Are Libertarians. I'm your host, Chris Spangle. We bring you all of the irreverence modern politics deserves while putting people before political parties. We examine current events from a libertarian perspective with the goal of leaving you better informed. Please be sure to rate and review us on iTunes, like us on Facebook, and subscribe on Patreon at wearelibertarians.com. In exchange for supporting our program, we give you all kinds of bonus content and free stuff. This show is crowdsourced, so you can send us news with the hashtag WALNews or in our Facebook group and Discord channel. We're always taking your questions and comments via email at editor@wearelibertarians.com. Please be warned that this show is raw, unedited, and authentic, so the language is sometimes offensive. I am out of the studio tonight. I am at DK New Media talking with my friend Doug Carr, who I will introduce in just a moment. He leaned into the microphone. Say hello, Doug.
Hello, Doug.
Hi, Doug. I have a work holiday party this Thursday night, so we're recording ahead, so you're going to hear me talk to Doug about Facebook and Twitter and those platforms and where they're headed for independent content creators. And after that, you will hear Cara Schulz. She is the candidate recruiter for the National Libertarian Party, and she joined me for about 40 minutes to talk about the challenges and she's actually a twice elected libertarian candidate in her city council, and so she's run for office and she's recruiting 2,000 candidates for the National Libertarian Party. So after we get done talking about social media, then please tune into that, and if you don't want to hear us opine about that, then you can forward ahead, but I don't think you should, because I've got my good friend Doug Carr, who you heard a couple weeks ago as we talked about, you heard he was in the Navy, I'm sure, even though we are recording this directly after that podcast, time shifting. I've heard many comments about your comments, Doug, because you're no, you're fine.
Am I making waves?
But that's what we want.
That's
want
what
comments.
I like doing.
Yes,
yeah.
we want people commenting. So I mentioned something a couple weeks ago on the show. I've got this theory, and Doug is one of the top digital marketers in the entire country, somebody that I've looked up to and respected for a long time here in the city of Indianapolis, somebody that's been a mentor to me in various ways in 2017. You've given me the confidence to really push ahead with We Are Libertarians and really put myself out there as a podcaster, businessman, which I thank you so much for.
That's the ultimate compliment. I can't tell you how much that means. Thank you.
When we met in April, and I had talked to a friend, a former host on the show, Lynn Swayze, and she said, you could be making good money doing what you do because you're really good at it. And I believed her, but it's like your friend, so you don't know that. But then when you meet somebody that you've followed for a long time that is well respected in the industry and said, no, you're really good at this and you know what you're talking about. And if you were to ever lose your job, you could immediately start making a lot of money doing this thing. And I went,
or enough at least.
Enough, right? Yeah. Well, I live simply. Okay, it's just me and the two cats. So
I've seen them.
Yeah,
on Facebook.
They're very cute. Look at this Look at my phone. Look how cute Muffins is. So it's you've been an encouragement, an encourager for me to really kind of push forward and put myself out there as an expert on podcasting, because I've done it for almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I've built this thing that is reaching tens of thousands of people, bringing in, a nice little second income for me. It's mostly going right back into the business, but
sure.
When you need a tank of gas, it's nice to have that extra money there. So I can't thank you enough for that, and I just think that you're an important voice here in Indianapolis, and so I have this theory about social media.
Yep.
I hate it, and I think that we've kind of gotten to this point because I'm numbered 19 million on Facebook. I joined. There's 2 billion people on the platform. I'm number 19 million. As soon as it came to my college in 2004 or 5, I jumped on it. I got on Facebook. I've been an early adopter of every social media platform up until Peach. I didn't do Peach.
Yeah.
I have loved social media from the beginning. It is responsible for my career. For those of you who don't know, I started working at a small AM radio station in 2004. I learned to market that station with zero budget on social media and helped turn Abdul into Abdul here in town because I was doing social media marketing. I then went on to the Libertarian Party and took hundreds of candidates and organizations and used that to help build the political party, into a well-respected third party here in Indiana. I mean, they already were, but I helped. Then I went on to that skill of using social media and interacting with people and building an audience was the encouragement to start We Are Libertarians in 2012, March of 2012, and to say, I no longer need to be hired by a radio station to be a political commentator and radio broadcaster. I can start my own thing, and I can build an audience around that. And I've now built an audience of tens of thousands of people. We have thousands of people listening a week. We have tens of thousands of people following online, listening to what the gang at We Are Libertarians, what I have to say. So, and now my day job is marketing a nationally syndicated radio show to people online on social media. And I've seen over the course of that, the last 5 years especially, if we wanted to get traffic to the website, you had to use social media. And referral traffic is still mostly Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook is incredibly powerful for people, and it became really powerful the last 5 years. And that is where, and I've noticed over the last 5 years that marketing dollars are going from radio stations and TV ads and doing a bunch of things to put it on Facebook. In fact, I've been involved with basically a TV commercial shoot that was done very low budget but looks super professional, that is being targeted through Facebook to specific zip codes.
Yeah.
Like it's an incredibly powerful marketing tool for small businesses, for independent publishers like myself. But I'm concerned because in that time, Facebook specifically, Twitter's garbage. Like, I don't know if you agree, but I think Twitter's a garbage platform that I don't think anybody really uses. Influencers do really well on it, but everybody else, it's garbage. It's like a news feed. Facebook is where I see most people having interactions, and to a lesser extent, Instagram and Snapchat.
Yeah, I mean, I still love Twitter, but your point is well taken. I mean, Twitter is basically a news feed. You know,
right.
It's the public bulletin board, and I like it. You know, I use it for discovery. You know, but if I'm going to have a conversation with someone, it's typically on Facebook.
So, I over the last year have Trump fatigue, and I think a lot of other people do too. And I think there's going to be a convergence of events that change these platforms because there's no longer the Wild West. We've now settled on Facebook, Google, Apple, and Amazon being the big four as major tech companies that are really going to do, you know, some may rise or fall, but for right now, those are the big four. You know, it's not like it was 10 years ago where you had a MySpace fallout and a Facebook rise and a Friendster and all these other companies. And so everybody's putting their eggs into these baskets, into the Facebook basket, especially for people's attention. Facebook started testing something where they are taking pages and putting them on a separate tab, groups on a separate tab. So what you're going to get is you're going to get a Facebook feed that resembles your Instagram feed, people that you love and respect. And I have a separate Facebook account that's very small with 120 people, that's friends and family, the people that I talk to on a regular basis, and I want to see their stuff, right? And I love that feed much more than the one that's been around for 15 years, that likes 10,000 pages, that has 8,000 connections. Like, that's like a fire hose of trash for the most part. And so I think Facebook is going to try, because they're being forced by Congress with the Russian stuff, and just by users tuning out, to change the algorithm, to change the way that things are set up, to move independent creators off of the platform. They'll eventually sign partnerships with major publications like the Washington Post, the New York Times, like they did with their instant articles and Google did with AMP. And the little guy, like, I got in at the right time to start a news outlet, right? I got in at the right time. And anybody who wants to start a media company, you're kind of a little bit hosed at this point because it's going to be hard to get organic growth like I got. Like, I had organic growth at a time where you could get organic growth for free.
Yeah, it's always nice to hit that upshot.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly right. But for people coming after, you're gonna have to pay for it. But then now, even if you pay for it, you're not gonna be in front of people.
Exactly.
You're gonna be in front of 5% instead of 2% of that feed. So, is my theory correct that moving forward, it's going to be hard for independent publishers? They're going to really start to squash independent publishers. For instance, We Are Libertarians, if I upload a video, monetization is turned off automatically. If I want monetization turned on, I have to get 1,000 views on a video. We never get 1,000 views. Google and YouTube have already decided that everything that comes out of my mouth is not monetizable. And so it's not a platform where I can you can't have the next PewDiePie. You can't have the next Joe Rogan, because the platforms have already decided we're going to go with a liberal bent and we need to patrol free speech, and the government is going to force us to do it if we don't start doing it. Which is, before I throw it to Doug to analyze my analysis, that is why it's really important for you to go to wearelibertarians.com and subscribe to our email list. I've never been a believer in email lists, but holy hell am I now. Yeah. So do you think that my theory of the days of organic growth and controlled thought on these platforms are upon us, or am I overreacting?
Well, I'll start out with some bad news, and then we'll get to good news. You never built an audience on Facebook. You just built Facebook's audience and were able to reach them. And this has been the danger since day one. And honestly, from a business perspective, one that we always pushed our clients, that no matter how enticing it was to spend all your time on Facebook, keep bringing them back to your site. What you just said was the money shot. You said, come back and subscribe to, We Are Libertarians. And so whenever we're pushing our clients for any messaging, anything that we publish online, we're always pushing them, go back and subscribe, go back and subscribe, go back and subscribe. Because when we have direct contact with our audience through a subscription or a phone number, that's our audience. That's not Facebook's audience. Between now and then, you're just renting Facebook's audience.
Right.
That's what you're doing. And so people, for people out there, I screamed when it happened. I thought it was, I honestly think if
when what happened?
Well, what happened was when Facebook launched pages, they enticed every business first to get up a page and then to start building their audience and to start, building community around the audience. And we all spent a lot of money and time on that.
Yeah.
A lot of money and time.
They penalized you if you didn't switch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so they took off, we started to get that exposure and we loved it and everything else, but then they turned us off, and they basically said, oh, well, if you want to reach your audience now you got to start paying us. I'm not sure anywhere else in commerce that, doing something like that, it would be like someone selling you a plot of land, down the street and then, tearing up the street after they sold you the building.
Yeah. It really is like you can now only reach realistically 5% of your likes.
Yeah. And that was the day that it hit me. I was like, never again, even with my own stuff. I'm all over Facebook and all over Twitter. But I am always pushing people back to my site.
And caveat that I know they're a private company; they can do whatever they decide. But we can also decide to stop using the product if we feel they're being dishonest with us.
Yeah, and there's a great libertarian argument here. In fact, my son and I were talking about it the other night, and that you have free speech, but if AT&T shut off your phone lines, do you have free speech?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, there's a real weird question here, that if Facebook is the 99% medium, from a social media standpoint, and then Facebook cuts off your voice, do you have free speech?
Amazon Web Services powers 48% of the back end of the internet.
Yeah.
Google is showing you 2% of the internet, but that's 98% of where you're spending your time. I mean, these four companies really, I mean, at what point do you feel like they're at a public utility point yet?
Public utility is a tough one, but I can say, like, I think it's Prager University right now that's suing YouTube, I think.
Oh, they may be.
Yeah. Well, basically what happened was a bunch of Prager University YouTube videos got marked as far as being, inciting or something like that. And so they weren't allowed to have ad money anymore. Well, ad money was a primary revenue,
right,
for them to continue making videos. I think Prager's actually got a pretty strong case. I'm not an attorney, but, Prager basically showed them, okay, well, here's all the other videos that are monetized that oppose our, so equal and opposite. And Prager's point is that, look, there is truly only one video, hosting social media site. Yeah. I mean, Vimeo doesn't even come close, and Wix is a paid site and everything else. And when you have that, kind of monopoly, I think there is an argument there that constitutionally you can really silence people, and you're in a position of power. And so I think, the Spider-Man, with great power comes,
Yeah, it's 21 videos for Prager University titled, "Are the Police Racist? Why Don't Feminists Fight for Muslim Women? Who is More Pro-Choice, Europe or America?" Google has since doubled down on its decision to make PragerU's videos inaccessible by many of its videos And then they started the alerts thing, which like PewDiePie was all over at the beginning, where, you know, the subscription tab doesn't really matter anymore. You have to now go and click alerts, and you know, trying to drive an audience, a mass audience, to go and do something takes years and a ton of promotion. And the whole notion of algorithms, I mean, really is them controlling some of this stuff.
Yeah, and that's the key issue. You know, it's the equivalent of someone stopping you from talking.
Right.
That's I mean, you know, it's a, you know, sure, there's the nuances there to argue about because they're a private company, but a private company can't, you know, put their hand over your mouth and tell you to stop talking outside. And so I think there's a real argument to be had. At the same time, I'm a capitalist, you know, and I look at these and I go, yes, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Because I honestly feel, you know, you said that, you know, we're down to, you know, these main ones, but, you know, crap, I thought MySpace was going to be it. I thought, you know, I thought Twitter was going to be it. I thought, you know, and so I really do think there's evolving systems right now that are really taking off. You know, we have, you know, natural language processing is taking off where we might be able to speak and have something read back and everything else. I do think there's opportunities in innovation that something better will come along.
Yeah.
And Facebook is buying everybody right now that seems like a threat.
Or,
you know,
fucking them over like they did Snapchat.
Yeah.
they wouldn't, Snapchat wouldn't sell, so they just took their idea and put it on their 3 apps.
Absolutely, and destroyed them. But to me, the political one is one that's really dangerous for them, and that's that they don't. I'm going to come off sound like such an asshole here, but they need to understand who has the money,
right?
You know, and typically, you know, very, very, very wealthy liberals, you know, there's that echelon of, you know, upper class liberals, but for the most part, the majority of liberals aren't, you know, multi-billionaires,
right.
You know, and when you get to the conservative side, you're getting to middle of America, big numbers, you know, obviously half the country, you know, but a lot of sway, you know, from a money standpoint. And whenever you do that, whenever you piss off you know, look at, you know, Sean Hannity didn't even, you know, it didn't even really happen. And, you know,
Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Was it coffee makers?
Keurig. So Keurig was a sponsor, and so Hannity had on more and basically gave it wasn't even a softball interview by Hannity standards, and then
it was Media Matters.
It's Media Matters, and they have all these no-buy lists. Like what you have to understand is that if and we went through this. It like when Rush Limbaugh said the Sandra Fluke thing and called her a slut. Anybody associated with Premier Radio, got on a no-buy list, and there are entire sites dedicated to letting everyone know at these ad agencies in Chicago, New York, and L.A. Surprise, liberal havens, and San Francisco. Like the ad agencies in those towns go and check those websites, and they go, okay, well, we're not buying this, we're not buying this. This is why you see Fox News with higher ratings, you know, having shower catheters as opposed to Chrysler on MSNBC, because you have these no-buy lists, and so even a show that is innocuous, like a Ryan Seacrest, who's syndicated by Premiere. These ad agencies just started to refuse to buy Ryan Seacrest because he was syndicated by the same people as Rush Limbaugh.
But see, I look at that as an awesome thing.
Right, but only the left does it. And so when the right is now starting to put it together and get it together, because they're just there's the Daily Kos always kind of existed. There was always this trashy leftists, as Ben Shapiro calls them leftists. The Antifa are leftists, and the left are people like the New Republic, The Nation magazine, David Corn, whatever, Mother Jones. And so now you have the right, the Weekly Standards, the National Reviews, and then the trashy alt-right, where they're now organizing, and whatever they're for, we're against. And it's you see it with the Roy Moore stuff.
Sure.
And so in radio, you just had a crippling of all of these local stations where, like, Rush Limbaugh was taken off here from a 50,000 watt radio station and put onto an AM station, because they just couldn't sell to local advertisers anymore, because the databases that Media Matters keeps included local advertisers here in every one of his 600 affiliates. And so, it's partly capitalism, but it sucks. It's silencing free speech, and I hate to see the right start to get into that game.
I do too.
And it's like this. And it's like when Hannity gives an interview to Roy Moore, just because he gave an interview to Roy Moore, like, it's in the public's interest for us to hear what Roy Moore has to say.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the public's interest for there to be balance to what he has to say. And so for Keurig and all these other sponsors to pull their ads, and when they did, the right started, hitting Keurig machines with golf balls, and and then it gets conflated into the internet, and even I did it because it was a funny tweet, like, where 1776 white men pour tea into the harbor for freedom. 2017 white men smash coffee makers for child molesters. Like, it was a funny tweet, but it is a very the internet simplifies everything down so much.
Well,
so
we talked on the last one that the word that keeps coming back to me, and I wrote about it about a week ago on Martech on my site, was stampede. You know, and that's that we have these stampedes of running, screaming people that they don't look at context, they don't investigate, they don't take a deeper dive, but they just join the herd and keep stampeding, and the herd gets huge, and then people are trampled under it. But my point with that, though, is that the plus side of it to me, and this is just me being honest, is that it always comes back to bite them in the ass, right? I mean, Kroger, why do I keep saying Kroger?
Keurig.
Keurig, the thing with Keurig that was interesting was they actually didn't even have a policy internal on what media to buy and not buy, and it was kind of a mistake. And so Sean Hannity, I think, gave away for like 500 machines on his show the other day or something. But again, Keurig immediately noticed, holy shit, we are in trouble. I mean, you think about, I don't know what Sean Hannity's reach is, but let's say it was a million people that got rid of their Keurigs.
Hannity's radio reach is probably 2 to 4 million people.
Yeah,
but let's say 1% of that.
Yeah, and you figure Keurig has every coffee pod you put in is licensed by Keurig, whether it's a third party or not. I mean, that's a shitload of money to just take an instant hit on
in one quarter.
And and so you got to explain that to your stockholders
pre-Christmas.
Yeah. And now I did notice, I forget the other coffee maker company, but they have been rolling out the ads, and I was like, good for them. Hell yeah, take some market share on this. But to get back to my point, like I keep going. Like, pain is when things change, and so what Facebook has done to this point hasn't been that painful, but it's going to get there. When people see that it's totally filtered, that they're being fed, just whatever propaganda that Facebook's people approve, and Google's doing the same thing, that's when competitors have a unique opportunity to snag some market share if they're intelligent. Like, I'm not a Microsoft guy, I'm a Mac guy, but I would love to see Bing just all of a sudden, if something really bad happened with Google and Bing caught 20% of market share, it would be fantastic, because it would cause an avalanche of other things to happen. Ad rates would drop, and all of a sudden, your ability to reach more people with less money would increase, which would increase your marketing results, which would increase your business results, which could grow your businesses, faster. And so I'm one of these guys that I can't stand this ridiculous bubble that these tech companies are in. Most of them are sitting in San Francisco, which has the hugest, disparity of poverty and wealth, has the hugest amount of homeless people, the most ridiculous housing rates that nobody can afford. And they want us to think that they're the people that, understand how the country should be run. And it's these, white guilt tech leaders, that live in their mansions that are starting to apply this pressure on their own people to think a specific way. But it's starting to crumble. The guy that got fired from Google,
James Daremore.
I'm so glad you were the perfect co-host.
Listen, what you have to understand.
I called
Doug,
you a co-host. Did you like that?
Yeah.
But you're like the perfect host because you know all of the facts.
I need a new offensive co-host. Yeah. So I literally just don't have a life. So I just read all this stuff all the time. And I've started posting all of my reading material, watch the videos I watch, all of the show prep that I do at wearelibertarians.com. So it's become almost my own personal Tumblr. And I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named Michael Hyatt. He built this Get Noticed theme that allows me to post these mini posts in a very easy way.
Nice.
And so I'm able to really pump my content out there independently.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm going to turn on comments there because I want to have a community there.
Make people subscribe to log in.
Yeah, good point. So,
but going back, I read a fascinating article the other day that Google has been doing a number of forums internal with employees, and this is far from over. Like there is absolute fear internally, and the problem is that some of the engineers that are in there that are still continuing to say this is really messed up are saying that productivity is slowing down at Google. And so it's not just having a debilitating effect from a cultural standpoint, it's really having an impact on their overall productivity. I mean, the fact is that there's smart people on the left and there's smart people on the right. If you throw out half the smart people, you're losing half your smart people.
Yeah, and to recap, like James Daremore wrote this internal memo at Google basically saying like the culture of diversity sucks here. Like you're just trying to encourage, like it really got into hot water with women in tech.
Yeah.
And his point was that men are inherently more analytical than women, and women are more inherently caretakers, and that's why you see it's like the wage gap argument. The reason there's a 70% difference in pay, or that women get 70% of what men get, is that women drop out of the workforce more often to raise kids. They're in lower paying jobs like social work or teachers.
But in tech, they're paid more, right?
Are they?
Yes.
No, I don't know that. Yeah. Yeah. And so
you slice the data the way that you want to feed your bias.
Exactly right. And so it's not that, I'm sure there are absolutely examples where women in the workplace are consistently talked over.
Yeah.
They're not listened to. Their ideas are not validated until a man says they're that way. I mean, we both have worked in professional environments where we know that to be true.
Absolutely.
Like the sexual harassment, lynching stuff, like there really is a very like pendulum swinging back saying, you know what? It's like you're going to respect us or we're going to like it what these guys are doing is wrong. Like Al Franken shouldn't be feeling up women.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey's different. Like Harvey Weinstein's probably the best example. You should not use your power to lord over,
manipulate.
Yeah. Like other people are not your property.
Right.
So I understand it, but what James Daremore said was basically like we don't necessarily have a problem. You're trying to create solutions for a problem that may not exist in the first place.
Well, I always tell people that the interesting thing on that whole argument is that differences, this is the quote that I can't remember where I read it, but it always comes back to mind, is that differences aren't deficits.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a really fascinating thing that women do that are and not all women, but women that are really climbing on board, the gender, that the women are treated unfairly train, is they're doing it by comparing themselves to men. And I find that so ironic that, okay, you're saying that you're not successful by comparing yourself to a man. Like isn't that inherently a 360 argument that doesn't work? Yeah.
Especially when women right now graduate college more often than men. They live longer.
Yeah. I mean, 98% of deaths in the workplace are men. You know,
right.
I mean,
that's the other part for the wage gap. Yeah.
But the thing there that I think is just weird is that it's comparing apples and oranges. You know, that you can't compare your success to a man to say that you're successful. Mm-hmm. You can be successful as a woman and just be successful.
Right.
You know, it doesn't have to be compared to a man. And so differences, I love the differences aren't deficits. The fact that a woman is, you know, over millions of years has become a better caretaker than a man on average, you know, is not a deficit.
Sure.
That should be used as an advantage. And any good business person, I mean, the stats are there as well that, you know, women-owned businesses actually profit better than men, especially on startups and stuff like that, because they don't go make these bulldog decisions and force everybody to kind of run their direction. They are more collaborative and everything. And so the fascinating thing is that, you know, if you're a good business person, the last thing that you want is a room full of men running your company anyways. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a terrifying.
Diversity is inherently good, but not at the cost of, like, there's a great book that I just read called Manning Up by Kay Heimowitz. And she basically argues that the 90s girl power movement, where all these brands and schools and institutions and government and Title IX and all these things, as they tried to level the playing field for women, what it did is it put men into delayed adolescence. Yeah. And that's why you have so many guys who, she's taken heat, as I have taken heat, you know. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with video games, but I do think that everything is balanced, where I've jokingly said, like, that slacker dude that just, like, hangs out and he goes to work and he's a bartender and he comes home and he plays video games and he watches football, he goes to sleep, he goes to work, football, video games, sleep. Like, that's not an existence where you're actually doing anything for the world. You're not actually adding anything to the world. Like, you're not contributing to society.
Right.
And there's way too many of those guys.
Yeah.
And... you know, I'm going out tomorrow night with a girl who said, like, that's all that's out there. And I've been ghosted 3 times. Like, this is an attractive, intelligent, 24-year-old single mom who has, like, a lot of things really going well. Like, she's a catch.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, guys out there are just, like, cowards. Like, not all guys, okay, I'm not saying all, don't use your flat thinking on me. Like, but there's a certain percentage, and I think those of us, like, man, if you heard George on that podcast, like, that's a man. Like, that's a guy that just goes out there and takes life by
You're talking
about
a 49-year-old single guy that's just has a rock star.
Well, we're messes. We're not, like, George is a man. We're messes.
The thing is you know, there's a side of me, and this will piss the women off, you know, that, you know, if you wanted a great guy with a great business, that his kids are gone and left, and you just want to grow old together with him, and he'll kill for you. He's a great caretaker, awesome beard. That's Doug Carr, right?
Right.
You know, but the fact is that, you know, I got a keg, not a 6-pack, you know, and so I'm fat and I work a lot of hours and everything else. And so, the dick at the gym that's looking at himself in the mirror, you know, every 5 seconds, you know, you're going to go home and cry and ask yourself, like, why is every guy an asshole? While there's guys like me, you know, sitting out there that would, and that's, I'm not feeling sorry for myself. I'm more saying, you know, hey, if you keep going out with dickheads, maybe it's not the dickheads that are the problems.
Sure. Yeah. So
where did we go with this?
Anyways, I'm bringing.
Are we in a rabbit trail?
We are so far down the rabbit hole. You and I are ADD as hell, and it's not good. But no, like, circling back, like, Elaine Powell, Condé Nast felt that Reddit needed to be censored because they were having some problem with revenge porn, and so they brought in the CEO, Elaine Powell, and Elaine Powell, you know, prides herself on, she's running for Congress right now. She just wrote a book. Like, she brought in a lot of quote-unquote diversity, very liberal, very feminist, and fundamentally didn't understand the audience of her platform.
No.
And she is as responsible as anyone for the alt-right.
Yeah.
Because what she did is she took a platform of dudes hanging out, talking to each other, told them, you're not welcome here. They went to 4chan, they created Pepe, and then they shitposted Donald Trump into the White House.
Right.
And so this false notion of we need to create diversity on these platforms because they live in their own little tech bubble, and they've kind of created their own misery because their Facebook feeds and their Twitter feeds are now algorithmed to only show them what they like. Like, they have unknowingly unleashed the very thing that they hate, and it's really kind of an interesting thing to watch.
If you don't want to see the monsters that are hiding in dark spots, don't shine a light at them.
Yeah.
Because we were talking on our previous podcast that I think people are inherently good. But every person has a measure of darkness to them, and its scale, but we don't ever want to scale when we look at someone, we don't want to say Al Franken's a 90% probably a good guy that cares about the people around him or whatever. We just want to say, no, he's either an asshole or he's, a god.
Editor's note, we only know of one woman, so like in the future, if like 75 women have come out and he's the new Cosby, just know that we recorded this on the day that those allegations came out.
I think the first time I saw it was on the opposite end. It was with President Obama. I saw all these people just worshiping this guy, and I'm standing there going, he's a guy,
right?
Like, he's a dude. He went to kind of had a pretty awesome life. Got to travel the world and went to prep schools and Ivy League, and I'm like, damn, that nice thing. And it was the first time that I started to see, and I could wax poetic about this too, but where people started worshiping people, and at the same time started hating people. Like heaven and earth all of a sudden found its way into, social media. And that there was either people that were demons and devils and they deserve to literally die. Like, you read some of the comments online and it's pretty horrifying. You get about 10 comments down and someone will be calling for a death,
Yeah.
And I'm glad they got shot, and I'm glad, like, holy shit,
you
man.
realize you really do see when you look at the fire hose of humanity, like the people that were hanging out watching a hanging in 1850, or
exactly.
We're like, there's a story of the Mongolians during the 1200s that this town wouldn't submit to them. So when they finally submitted, what they did is they dug a pit. They made these people dig a pit. They put the townspeople in it. They put planks of wood over it, and then like made it so they were incapacitated, basically. And then all the Mongolians, the hordes, walked up and sat down on the planks and had dinner as people were dying underneath them.
Yeah.
Like, just enjoying themselves, fun, frivolity. Like, that to me is a level of human depravity and lack of respect for human life that's hard for us as individuals to comprehend, but that's in every one of us.
It is, and when you get to online, like I'll give another one, that I think it was either Facebook or somebody was saying that the government had to get involved because of the amount of terrorist communication online. That basically that they were able to get these messages out, and if not through the web, that somehow terrorism would disappear, I guess.
Right.
But the thing that I look at it and I go, the Constitution was pretty clear about not inhibiting people and making it a lot tougher to find people guilty, than the opposite. And they knew the founding fathers even said, it's going to be at the expense of the death of people, that guilty people will go free and everything. And I always look at those things and I just go, when you manipulate them, you're touching an experiment and not getting a true result. Like, if you're hiding all of the terrorist activity, how do you find the terrorists, and how do you track them down? If you hide all the racists from online, how do you know when people are racist?
Well, yeah, it's like when we put white, when we talk about white culture on We Are Libertarian, they just see libertarian white. They don't listen to the content.
Right.
They just lump us in with Richard Spencer because we just must be Richard Spencer if we're libertarian, moderately right. Like, there's nobody at YouTube that's actually listening to anything that we're saying.
Right. There's no, again, we talked about context and intent. Those things are lost. And so I'm a big fan of leaving things alone, and letting them self-destruct. And so to go back to all the way, back to the beginning, to take a Facebook, every time Facebook does this, I kind of cheer a little bit inside. And it's that, that keep going, guys. They're trying to push it, and they're going to push it as far as they possibly can. But the problem is that a lot of times you just can't come back from that. You can't, you once you go over the edge and the audience leaves and the money leaves, trying to get it back is impossible nowadays. That's the lesson of, the stampede is, once Facebook gets on everybody's bad side, there's no coming back from that.
Stop wasting your money on advertising. If you listen to the show and you love the show and you have a business that would appeal to libertarians, stop wasting your money on Facebook ads. Spend it with me. I say that self-servingly, but like, you're going to get a direct partner with an engaged audience, and you're not going to get censored.
Well, there's a real, and that's, within the industry, that's influencer marketing, right?
Yeah.
And influencer marketing is advocacy and influencer marketing get better results than any other type of advertising. It's just that they're difficult, right?
Right.
That's Facebook ads is just easy. I get to select, put in a budget and go.
Right.
Well, to go find every Chris Spangle that, to get to 5 million people, that's tough, and then writing checks to each one of them. But the problem that people are missing is that the return on investment is much greater because you're going to care whether they're getting results or not because your livelihood depends on it.
Yeah.
Facebook doesn't care whether you got results or didn't get. In fact, there's this great thing. People should look it up, honestly. If you're doing Facebook ads and you go to the demographic selections and there's a thing called, I forget, it's called audience edition or audience extension, or I don't think I'm wording it right, but it's audience something. And it's clicked automatically. Now, this isn't a hidden, you literally have to enter, the demographic, and behavioral data to find this checkbox, but it's hidden. And so once you uncover all the demographic and behavioral options on Facebook ads, you'll see way down at the bottom, there's like audience extension or something like that. I can't remember the name, but anyways, what that is Facebook sells your ad to third parties when they don't have enough places to cover it. And what advertisers find over and over and over again is that when they uncheck that button, they get much higher click-through rates.
Are you talking about the audience? There's Facebook. You can advertise on Facebook. You can advertise on Instagram, and then they have their advertising network, their display network.
It's a third. It's basically Facebook. No, it's not a selection. It's literally Facebook has an audience. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, like boosting if you hit that boost post, for instance, that's a waste of your money. What you need to do is wait 3 days and then go back and boost it in the back end of the business manager, because what they're doing is they're just trying to get your money by having you hit boost post.
Well, that's what this is. I mean, basically, it's a network of advertisers that they can sell your ads to when they don't have enough space to sell it. And the problem is that it doesn't have the targeting and the communication and the buy-in that Facebook people have. And so what advertisers find is whenever they have that box checked, they lose half their money. Well, guess what? Did Facebook care? No, they have it defaulted on. They literally have it defaulted on.
I'm having a problem right now. My good friend Rupert Bonham, Rupert from Survivor.
There it is, Facebook Audience Network.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's and they advertise it. Introducing Facebook's Audience Network. Today, we're announcing an expanded test of Facebook's Audience Network, a new way for advertisers to extend their campaigns beyond Facebook and into other mobile apps. The power of Facebook ads off Facebook.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's
a guy like me wrote that copy.
so Rupert got locked out of his Twitter, and actually, I'm pretty sure it was somebody who was associated with the show that did it with malintent.
Mm.
And so Rupert can't get into his Twitter account, and it's essential to help promote his charity.
Yeah.
But like, we've spent 3 days trying to find somebody at Twitter to get a hold of. There's no way.
Right.
You don't know how to get a hold of anybody. Like,
right.
So do you think that the future of advertising really is that small mom and pop? We're gonna, in so many ways, the media, the advertiser, the marketing dollars, the news gathering, it's all heading back towards that more mom and pop.
I do. I mean, what we work with a lot with our clients is still on organic. That when we develop, really premium content for people, including like podcasts, we tend to get highly relevant, engaged people with intent. The fact is that I don't care if you're selling cars in town, people aren't going to Facebook to buy a car.
Right.
They're just not, but they're going to Google, to search to buy a car. And so, Facebook is often, we promote content on Facebook to drive people back to the site where then we can convert them,
right.
Into a subscriber or to make a purchase. But the purchase intent isn't really on Facebook most of the time. And so it's, and people are finding that. I mean, within the industry, I think the funny part, it's maybe not that funny, is, I have a lot of my friends that were social media managers a couple of years ago that are now out of a job, and a lot of companies have said, you know what, no, I'm going to take my social media team and I'm going to put them back into my customer experience team and work on retention and I'd much rather have this person working on customer happiness, which I know has a great return on investment, than tweeting and throwing out Facebook updates that 5% of
that nobody cares.
That nobody sees.
If you're Tide,
yeah.
Like I couldn't imagine being like the social media person for Tide,
right? Because
like,
the expectations are greater.
And what's what do I care about Tide? What Tide says?
Yeah.
But Facebook is happy to take their money to
Absolutely.
say nonsense. That's where like a Wendy's stands out, where you have just this one smart, snarky person, fighting with everybody in a fun way.
But that's the power of premier content. Like that's the power, is that you have to truly be exceptional.
Yeah.
And so that's hard. And so people go, that doesn't work. I'm just going to buy ads. HubSpot announced at a event recently that, they didn't say they were throwing in the towel, but they said inbound is basically not going to happen unless you're buying ads or paying for, Facebook, or whatever.
Right, because Facebook turned it off.
Well, guess what? It's because HubSpot's content wasn't that good. As a marketer, I do not go read a 25-year-old account manager's article on HubSpot to get inspiration for my, I don't, know. And so, look, HubSpot's a good company and they're making a lot of changes and everything else, but the fact is that they were the Walmart of content.
Right.
They were just pumping out so much crap, and you go to an article there right now, and I guarantee it's really lightweight, and there's like, whereas you go to, some experts article, go to a Mark Schaefer or Dennis Yu is a good guy for Facebook. Dennis writes these really verbose, long-winded, screenshots showing every aspect of the testing that he's done and everything else. And guess what? Dennis Yu does pretty good selling workshops.
Why you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's the thing, is we went through this phase of, well, everybody's got to do content. So 3 blog posts a week and it was all crap. It's like radio, right? Who won on radio? The people with the best content won.
Right, like the idea of PR Newswire is a great idea. Put your press release out there, but now it's just an SEO farm. I mean,
it's not even that.
Yeah. So how does a Dennis Yu or how does a Dennis Yu get discovered? How does a Chris Spangle or a Doug Carr or the next political commentator or industry expert get discovered in a post-social media world?
Well, I mean, I'll give a great book for that is Mark Schaefer wrote Known, KNOWN, and he basically has kind of a play-by-play of, how do you get there? The thing is it doesn't, I don't know that I got, I was early on board definitely, and so I got a good Twitter following and a good Facebook following. But I really think that my following ramped up mostly from writing great articles, and then I got known locally before I got known nationally. I went and spoke at events. Like I was arguing with a young guy, that says that he doesn't get invited to speak anywhere, and I was like, invited? Like, holy crap. I was like, I could look up 20 events in town in the next week and they would be begging for anybody to show up and speak to them, like you can, and I'm serious, like, any club, I spoke at the National Speakers Association. I'm not part of the National Speakers Association.
They're just that desperate. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. But people really want a different, and I kept doing that and doing that and doing that until I got good. Right. I mean, I was not good. I was a terrible public speaker when I first started, and I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And I guess I just was pigheaded by that age where I wasn't going to let anybody tell me I couldn't, and I just kept going and going and going. And you have to differentiate yourself. And I mean, your history is so unique that I don't think there's a twin to Chris Spangle, in this universe. And so, and that's always the tough one is what's unique about, what is unique about you that other people don't have. You talked about the audience you built, but you went beyond that. Audiences aren't that hard to build. That's just people listening and, stuff like that. But the hardest part is building a community of people that actually interact with you. I'd say that I have a huge audience. I don't know that let's say it's equal to yours, but my community is terrible. I do not have interaction with the people that I've attracted at all. And so I'm in awe of your talent there, that you really get people engaged and talking with each other and going to, events and everything else. I just don't have that. And so I'm a student, when it comes to that. But none of this has ever stopped me.
Yeah.
I think people tend to want to ask permission or to get recognized, and they shouldn't wait. I tell people, just plant your flag. I got in an argument a long time ago with people that it was over the term expert. And it was when Malcolm Gladwell came out with this book and said, an expert has spent 10,000 hours. And I was like, that's such horse shit, and everybody was like, well, anybody that calls himself an expert is an idiot. And I said, you know what? Are you looking for an expert? Can I help you? If I can help you, yeah, I'm an expert.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, you taught me that. Like what? Can you get paid to teach people how to podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you're an expert in podcasting. I was like,
what?
I am?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, dumbass.
But people naturally want to be recognized before they go plant the flag, and maybe you die and you just get slaughtered out there. But the fact is that it's the people that are audacious enough to put themselves in front of the crowd and to go say they can do something are the ones that, that get the opportunity. And what was it, Scott McCorkle at Exact Target, when this is right about when I left Exact Target, but he was telling me they had 5 RFPs in with these massive companies, Bank of America and some other ones, and they said that basically if they had gotten, I think, 2 or 3, it would have been so painful for the company. Like it would have put them on their knees as far as what they had to deliver when they had to deliver it. They won all 5.
Wow. Oh,
and
yeah, ExactTarget was an email service that's now owned by Salesforce, which now owns the biggest building in the city.
Yeah. And Scott McCorkle's point was they didn't know if they could do any of them. They didn't. And he goes, you have to be willing. He said this at an event. He said, you have to be willing to get your nose bloody.
Yeah.
Like you have to be willing to fail to see what you're truly worth.
And it's so true. Like the Ray Kroc story, Founder, was a great movie.
Love that movie.
Oh, it's you partly hate him, but you also love him at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think part of what has, like, I don't have a college degree. I dropped out of college.
Yeah,
I was
I
a
did
history
too.
major. Yeah, I mean, but I think part of, and then I've had this great, like, I've had every dream job I've ever wanted to have, and I'm 34 years old, and it's just because I never stopped grinding. Like, it literally is that insecurity of not having a college degree, and it's not like I know when I know that I'm being annoying, and I know social norms, and I know when I'm walking past, I'm like, you shouldn't add every person you've ever met onto your Facebook account, but I did.
Yeah.
And so then I ended up with 5,000 friends. I just, like, building a community. It was like, what would be a good idea is, how about I set up a Facebook group and start inviting all my libertarian friends into it, get a bunch of people in there. I know I'm annoying my friends, but, like, you have to do things along the way that are going to be somewhat annoying, or maybe I
don't even know that we knew they were annoying. I always tell
Right.
people that given Facebook's age and everything, and Twitter and we're still in the Wild West of what social is going to do to us mentally and behaviorally and everything else online. When people say, I hate it when people are like, there's a guy, I swear to God, he retweets, I think it's almost every day. And it's a tweet that I did like 7 years ago, and it was like, no rules, try things, something like that. And he literally, like, to this day, I go and see who mentioned me, and there it is again, but the thing was like, who makes these rules? I think it's a lot of people that don't want you to succeed, that put these fake constraints out there that, I saw that you wanted to do this. I tell my clients all the time, let's try it. Let's try it. And then we'll find out whether it worked or didn't work.
For me, starting the podcast was, who am I to be a political expert? Well, you've been in politics for 10 years, and you've worked in the Republicans and the Libertarians, and at the Libertarians at the high level, you've worked with hundreds of people. Like, who says you're not an expert? Who says you're not a political commentator?
But your vote is worth the same as anybody else's. So
it's exactly,
who the hell is the right to say, well, I'm going to pay attention to that guy? Let's pay attention to the pollsters and the analysts that said that Hillary was going to win.
And it's the audacity of like, all right, well, I have experience, and that experience, I think I have a unique point of view, and I want to tell. And then there's the audacity of, like, just having your friends on.
Yeah. Like,
who says, and you just try stuff, and then you figure out, like, wow, Greg Lenz is, like, a brilliant political thinker.
Yeah.
You have a brilliant point of view that is totally unique in somebody like James Neese.
Yeah.
You have a crazy person like Maya Axton that nobody ever listens to, and you see the world in completely different ways as a result of those conversations. Like, I think if you're out there listening, you just got to try stuff. Like, the insecurity, I still feel it to this day. It doesn't matter how many listeners we have. It doesn't matter if, like, let's say 20 years down the road, I'm hosting a show on CNN. Like, I will still feel like an imposter. I will still feel like somebody at some point is going to figure out that, like, I am not an expert. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a phony. Like, I think everybody goes through that. You just got to do it, man. You just got to, like, if you're not even political commentating or podcasting or whatever I'm been into, like starting a garage door repair business or becoming the best locksmith in the world. Like, for me, my mentality completely shifted last December when I watched this documentary called Jiro Loves Sushi.
I saw that.
Jiro.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in my fat ass and had pizza like 4 days in a row from Jack's, which is great. Not like the crappy Jack's, but like a local pizza chain, Jack's Pizza down by us.
I've not had it.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
They put the toppings under the cheese. And they pile on so many toppings. So good. But I was just laying there like a beached whale in front of my fire watching Hitler documentaries. And I just felt like garbage, and I'd fallen off my health path, and I wasn't achieving what I had a bad review
This
at work.
sounds like me every Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. Still, I have to have a pep talk on Sunday nights. Trust me, Doug. And I watched this Jiro Loves Sushi documentary, and it's about this old guy in Japan who makes the world's best sushi, and he's obsessed with it. And he is obsessed with making the world's best sushi, and he has never done achieving the world's perfect sushi. And then I watched this documentary about a guy named C.T. Fletcher, which is called My Magnificent Obsession.
Yes.
C.T. Fletcher is the alpha male inside every man's head. He's amazing. And he's like, you know what? If I die, he's like, I have a heart condition, and if I die in the gym doing bicep curls, and I've died doing my obsession, my life is complete.
Yeah.
And like watching those two back to back, it made me go, what am I passionate about? What do I care about? What do I want to wake up and do every day? And what do I want to put into the world? And like right now, what I'm putting into the world is me sitting here doing nothing, me half-assed doing a podcast, half-assed doing a job, half-assed doing personal relationships, half-assed being a member of a family. Like, you just want to be a bum your whole life. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination. I think other people look at me and go, you're not a bum, but I'm. There's times I'm a bum, you know, and I just like that documentary just inspired me, and so like
the only thing I would say to
double down.
Maybe I mean the only thing that I would say to that is that you are poking around and trying a lot of things. Like I think that the people that frustrate me the most are the ones that they don't want to fail. And so they plan for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
And the thing is you don't. It's stupid. You know, I freaking love The Rock. You know, I mean, the guy's hilarious. But he did a video from he was standing on a patio in Vancouver, British Columbia, and he was saying that he played down there for the BC Lions. He played for like Saskatchewan or something. But he was at BC Lions place. He played one game in the CFL, and he was cut.
Mm-hmm.
And his dream for the NFL that he worked for his entire life had just gone out the window, which opened up his opportunity to go wrestle, which is what his dad did, and now became a movie star and everything else.
Yeah.
And so he said something like sometimes your biggest failure is the very thing you need to succeed, or something like that. And I love that because that's the way I look at it is that's why I tell people try.
Yeah.
Who am I to say no? People come to me and they say, do you think I should do this? And I'm like, try.
Right.
Like, just go. Like it's funny. I used to tell, Jen, who was who started her own agency, so I'm forever proud. I don't know whether it was out of my abuse or out of my
sexual or physical or
no sexual, but I used to tell Jen all the time to really be careful of the stories that in your head. Like we would get on a phone call with a client, and I'd say we have to up our rates with them, and she'd be like, oh, I don't think they're going to pay that, and I'd say what. Why did you say that? Like what precipitated that message to flash through your head, and most of the time, and I'm not picking on her, it's us. Like most of the time we paint these pictures in our head that are totally false. They're literally a vision that will never happen. Like the fact is let's say you did quit it all. Tomorrow you start and you crash and burn. Are you going to be on a park bench in a month? No. You're going to move on to the next thing. But for some reason, our brains tell us you're going to be on a fucking park bench, you loser.
Right. Yeah, no. And I think, and other people don't see all the stuff that goes on in our head. So like they're mystified. I'm mystified sometimes when I meet talented people and they're just like, nobody'd ever take me seriously. I'd never do, I'm like, you don't see yourself the way that I see you.
Well, but
and you have to like double down and go, oh, maybe I'm doing the same thing.
Let's take a loop all the way back to social media. That I think for one thing that I have done well in the past 10 years is I've really shared my pain with other people. Like I don't think there's a lot of people that follow me online that haven't seen me go through some really big ups and downs, both weight loss, weight gain, my dad passing away, my business in 2012.
Being on We Are Libertarians.
That was awesome. And the thing is it was another one where people were like, oh, you're a marketer. Like you should always have the, picture of a great steak and a 5-star,
right,
hotel room and where you're traveling to next and everything. I'm just like, ugh. Like I want other people to know this has been a struggle and but it's been worth it. I saw, I was just reading a book yesterday or something, but it was basically that entrepreneurs over employees. It was entrepreneurs almost always make less money than employees and are always happier. So like, that's a pretty fascinating thing.
Yeah.
And I tell people when I look back, I had probably, DK's been around for coming up on 11 years now. I had like 2 years that I got paid more than what I got paid, like when I was running at Compendium, the rest of them were way lower,
right.
But I'm happy. And there are some ups and downs with businesses that, you got the tax bullshit and everything else, but sometimes you do have $25,000 in the bank that, you can go out and go get something, go on vacation, go do whatever. Well, if you're an employee, maybe you got that same 25,000, but you got it spread over, 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
That was the difference between us, And so I just think, again, the fake stories that people put in their head and then the fake stories that social media puts in people's heads. We have people, you'll see someone's, there's a terribly sad thing, but a friend of my, my daughter's friend's sister, I don't know exactly what happened. I think it might've been overdosed. I'm not quite sure. But I read her, I'm reading her threads in Facebook, like morbid thing to do, but I was like, do I remember her? Was she over at the house, everything else? And I'm reading her threads and it's happy, 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 happy. This person was not a happy person.
Yeah.
Right. But social media became this place of contests where they had to pretend that they were better than they really were. And there's some real danger in that, I think, that to go back to our original conversation is social media is a very, very, it's how we want people to perceive us, not the, you never saw the deep, dark things that I yelled at my daughter, in our arguments on Facebook.
Full Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, exactly. And so it feeds that same weird thing in our head that tells us we're not worthy or we're not this or we're not that. When you're sitting there on Facebook and you're just seeing everybody around you is doing so much better than you are.
Yeah. Well, they're pretending too.
And they're pretending.
Mm-hmm.
It's all fake,
That's I final question for you, and then we'll start wrapping up. But do you see? And I've noticed a huge change in my brain since I got a smartphone in 2010. And this past Sunday, I put my phone in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Because I said, all right, reasonably, I'll be in the bathroom every 2 to 4 hours, 2 to 6 hours. Let me go in there and I'll check it there. I read like half or almost an entire book.
Yeah.
I read over 100 pages.
Yep.
And It was nice and this entire week I've just not been checking social media, having conversations with my phone, like making an active effort to put it down, and it's nice. And the people that I talk to that cut out social media feel better about their life. Like, do you see in the future, in the short-term future, I do, but I'd be interested to hear what you think. Do you see an exodus from smartphones and from social media and from just being hyper-connected? Like, is that honeymoon kind of over with the technology?
I think it's going to be a lot like vacations were with work. You know, at one time in the United States, people didn't go on vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they just took some time off to be with their family, replant the garden, you know, and they were back to work on Monday.
They worked in the city and they were in a tenant house with 3 other families, and then they got a train so they could go to the weekend once a year to see their family for Christmas.
Yeah, and so I think that's what I see it, you know, kind of becoming is that I think more and more people. I'm still the guy that as soon as I wake up in the morning, I turn off my alarms and I check Facebook and I check Twitter stories to see what Trump said, so I can laugh at it.
Right.
You know, I
don't know why he called me shorty. I'd never call him.
I'm that guy, but then I immediately go start reading. I read it every morning, you know, and I take the dog out, you know, to do his business. And what's funny is everybody always says to me, man, you are online like 24/7. And it is so not true.
Yeah.
It's that I have 6 podcasts and I have, a couple publications that I'm writing for. And all of those are trickling data into social media.
Yeah.
So it looks like I'm there all day.
And your algorithm is showing Doug hours later. It happens to me all the time, too. I'm like, no, I'm really offline most of the day, but like my post is popping up.
Yeah, and so usually for me, it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, I go get in a Facebook fight, you know, and piss everybody off, you know. And then the other thing that I would really recommend people do, and I've been doing this lately too, is I was doing a hashtag called Good People for a long time. And I don't know if it's still showing up or not, but I was forcing myself. I was actually seeing a hypnotist who was helping me helping me relax and helping me with weight loss. He really helped me too. I lost like 60 pounds with him, and then I stopped, of course, and gained it back. But one of the things that he had me do was every single night when I went home, he had me do a gratitude, and it was basically at the end of the day, I had to think about 3 people, past, present, you know, it didn't matter, stranger, you know, whatever, that I was appreciative for and why. And it's amazing how that twists your brain.
Yeah.
Like you go from, just got home, there's no food in the house, or, you know, with you, it's the cat's meowing, or, you know, or, you know, whatever, what the hell's on Netflix? I've watched everything, you know.
Why aren't there new Hitler documentaries?
Yeah. You know, instead I was sitting there going, well, I haven't thought about that teacher in like 20 years. She was amazing. You know, I'm really thankful for, and all of a sudden I got a little bit more pep in my step, you know, as I was walking around and stuff. And so one of the things that I've been doing even on Facebook is, a lot of people, it's really funny. You know how many people have unfollowed you by how many people that haven't seen you talking positively on Facebook?
Oh, no, yeah.
You know, but people are like, oh yeah, he's in political fights all day. I maybe one every 3 weeks now, you know, but the rest of the time I really do try to find some really, I'm going through Twitter and going through Facebook, and one of my friends will share something beautiful, and I make it a point to share that.
Yeah.
And I really think that that's what people need to do more. It's easy to get caught up in the hate and the anger, especially if your life isn't going the direction that you thought it would or wanted it to. It's easy to start blaming other people. You know, for me with a business, it was, I hated the, you know, IRS and regulation and, you know, Obamacare and this and that.
Right.
The reality was, if I just got my ass out there and did a couple more sales, I'd be fine. Shut up. You know?
It is. Like you have to take individual responsibility, and that's libertarians.
The libertarian way.
Yeah. I mean, libertarians have to live the libertarian lifestyle and be good examples of libertarianism by being individually responsible. And yes, the government is a problem.
Yeah.
But Al Franken groping a woman is not Roy Moore is not the end all be all of all your problems.
If you really want to change this country's politics and be an incredible libertarian and really change the direction, go start a business and get wealthy.
Yeah.
And start building power to go do that, right? You're not going to get it as an employee.
I think people have to be really intentional with hitting send too. I think, and I've been thinking a lot about that lately too, where every single tweet, comment, Facebook post is a choice.
Yes.
And
I do a lot of that.
It's a choice.
I write it and then I don't publish it.
I will go back and delete comments, and then I'll be in a fight, and then somebody will be like, "You deleted your comment?" I'm like,
I haven't deleted, but I've hovered over the publish button before where I just go, no, I'm not going to share that.
No, I might flare up. I have my dad's temper, and I hit publish, and then I think about it for 30 seconds. I'm like, if I were on the other end of that, I would be so mad, and that would hurt my feelings. I should undo. Like, I'm a professional communicator. I have no business being mean to people online, but like, I think.
I love when people sting me, though. When I get stung really hard online, I am just like, oh my God, that was amazing.
I'm too sensitive.
Really?
I implode. I get mad.
You must be pissed at me all the time.
I get, because I know, like, fundamentally, it's like Rob Kendall. Like, Rob Kendall and I go back every single day back and forth.
Yes.
Fundamentally, I love Rob, but Rob's also playing a character, and I love to poke at his character. Like, I know deep down Rob's a decent person, but he's catering to old people because he's got to do what he's got to do to get get a job. But like, I'm much too sensitive to be online, and I just, I've had to start. I will go back and delete a comment because I'm like, you know what, that was unnecessary.
Yeah.
And part of my makeup is that the way that when I'm not feeling great about myself, or I'm feeling personal pain and stress, one of the best stress relievers is just to be an asshole and be mean to somebody. And it's a Spangle family trait. Let me tell you, like, we go back and I'll show you some of my relatives from Southern Indiana.
I think America's, on par.
Yeah. And I think that being mean to a stranger on the internet feels so good sometimes. And it just gets it exercises that demon. And I think it's a choice that I've got to look and go, you know what? Am I doing this because I feel shitty and I want to make somebody else feel shitty? And if I can make them feel shitty and make them feel lower than me, I'm ranking myself up. But like, at what cost? Like, I'm sacrificing my reputation. I'm sacrificing my mood for an hour or two. I'm sacrificing their mood for an hour or two, a day or two. Like, I'm sacrificing a potential friendship. Like, what's the point of like being mean to somebody? And I think
that's the critical question. That's why I've really, really slowed down on the politics online. Is am I making people think differently?
Yeah.
And if I write it out and I'm about to publish it, and I sit there and I ask that question, like, after I publish this, will anybody think differently?
Yeah.
90% of the time it's no. 10% of the time it's I shared a story the other day, I didn't realize that the Congress had a shush fund for sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Like $15 million.
$15 million.
So
people, yeah.
So I put out, I said, if you think government is serious about sexual harassment, read this. And the people that responded were both sides of the aisle, everything, and nobody said anything shitty. Everybody was just kind of shocked because they had never read that before. And so that's like one that I said, okay, I'm going to be snarky, but people should really know that this exists. And a lot of people in my feed had no clue, and so that changed people's, perspectives a little bit. But most of the time I look at it and I go, I have a couple of trolls. I have Joe Shoemaker, he's like wicked troll on me. Mm-hmm. And he can be just mean.
I've got those people too, like John Ulrich. Like, I know fundamentally John's a good guy, but every time I see John pop up in my notifications, like, is this going to be the time I block this asshole? You know, like, I've met him and we get along in person, but like Dorn Brenton.
Yeah, Joe's like a really nice guy. He's a good realtor, everything else, but he will go from 0 to 100% slicing my throat with a comment in no time, and so now I have fun the opposite way. Like, I disarm. You know, he throws that out, and I instantly throw a disarm out. Like, Joe, come on.
Like, Rob Kendall and I do that, and like, we didn't talk for like a period of 3 or 4 months because he just pissed me off too bad one day, and like, and I had to go, like, Rob's not really being, you know, like,
that's it.
It's in because it was a rough period of my life, but yeah, like, if it happens during campaigns too. Yeah. Like, I always feel so bad when I hear people say, like, yeah, my aunt and I aren't speaking anymore, or because it's not, like, it is serious. Like,
well, libertarians really do have a lot of morning time during campaigns.
We have a lot of, like, we lose a lot, but like,
sorry, I didn't mean to sting you.
All right, final thoughts. I got to get out of here. I got to go. Yeah. No, it is. It's just sad. Like, you don't have to take it all so seriously. It's serious business, but you don't have to take it so seriously.
I always tell people what's in your life that you can change, right? And it's, Trump, Obama, whoever is in Washington isn't really impacting my life that much.
Yeah,
it's just not. That's the thing is, do I want government to retreat, and do I want more of a libertarian approach and constitutional approach? Absolutely, because I do think about my kids and their grandkids and everything else. But today, I can choose to be happy. I can choose to ignore people online that are shitty. I can go read a nice book or watch a positive story. Right. I can sit out in my backyard and think about 3 people I really appreciated. And I can go to bed in a happy mood.
Yeah, I think it's because
I can choose. That's my choice.
But I think it's also because your identity isn't wrapped up into your politics, and I think and I certainly have had this. Like, when I left the Libertarian Party of Indiana, I had spent 4 years being the libertarian in the state. Like, my whole identity was Libertarian Party of Indiana. Like,
that can burn you out.
My job, my politics, my marriage was on the rocks. So, like, I wasn't happy about, I didn't have a good family life. Like, my identity was libertarian. Yeah. And so when people attacked the Libertarian Party of Indiana, it was very personal. Yeah. And now when people attack libertarianism or the Libertarian Party or the Republican politicians like Rand Paul that I like, I just don't take it as seriously because, my identity has expanded. I'm a Christian. I'm a libertarian. I'm an uncle. I'm a son. I'm an employee at a place that I love to work. Like, I'm a friend to all these different people. It's like you can have friends and family and people move in and out of your life, and your life isn't destroyed. Like, I can go through a breakup now, and it's because my identity isn't. My worth and identity isn't all wrapped up in that thing. And I think there's too many people online talking politics where their identity is too closely identified with, like, where they feel like it's a personal attack. Like, if I don't like Donald Trump, it doesn't mean that I don't like you.
Well, with me, it's really funny because, I would have much rather had an incredible candidate to vote for in the last election, but I always joke with people, like, the funny thing is people on the left always instantly, say, well, you Republicans. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not a Republican. So I agree with you, and the people on the right are always like, you liberal bastard, and I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not, but okay. Yeah. And so I'm always like, we paint this picture in our head of that is the demon child spawned from hell that I have to lash out at, and it's my job to slay the dragon. No, it's not. Chill out. Let him go.
All right. Final thoughts. Final thoughts for all of this conversation, and then also how can people get in touch with you?
Well, I mean, the big thing is I do think look out for something to happen down the Facebook monopoly kind of line. YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, whatever. They're playing a really, really dangerous game right now.
Right.
And when the audience leaves, that's when the money leaves, right? And that's when these things collapse overnight. And I just wouldn't be surprised. It might not be for a year, it might not be for 5 years, but these guys are getting such huge monolithic companies that are single-minded that it's destined for failure.
Yeah.
It's destined. And somebody else will pop up that's more agile, that has better technology, that will have more fun with online, and just make the plunge when that happens. That's why I love adopting new, I don't care. Like, was it Gab out now and stuff is like well,
like Twitch is owned by Amazon.
Yeah.
So Amazon has the server space to handle a
Right.
competitor play for, it's primarily gaming, but if they were to make a consumer move.
they are.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
They're going to make a huge move. And again, and go support those.
Right.
If you think Facebook and Google and Twitter are being assholes, look, go move over. It'll be good to have competition, because guess what? Once there's competition and they have to battle over the dollar, they'll quit messing with us.
Yeah.
They'll quit messing with everybody, and it'll be a free place,
All right, Doug, thanks for joining me. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, man.
All right, cool.
Cool deal.
Welcome to We Are Libertarians. I am Chris Spangle. I'm the host, and joining me on the line is Cara Schulz, the candidate recruitment specialist for the Libertarian Party. Cara, how are you doing tonight?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's very exciting to talk to you. My personal philosophy is that the job of a national and a state and a local party is to recruit, both leaders and candidates. So it's nice to see the National Libertarian Party take that step. And I will say, under Nick Sarwark, the national office has been making many great strides. And I bet. And under your addition, this is an exciting step. So can you explain to people what a candidate recruitment specialist is?
Sure. So a candidate recruitment specialist, what I do is I talk with libertarians who are interested in running for office, kind of assess their needs and where they're at, and then try to connect them to resources and also connect them with their state party if they have not already done that, so that they can get assistance at the local level as well. Just try to make the whole process as smooth as possible for them to get on the ballot and get their campaign started and underway. And then I also help states. So the state chapters, I work with either their chair or their candidate recruitment person or their political director, and see what they need to be able to recruit more candidates and be able to support more candidates as well. So I have two missions going on at the same time.
Cool. We'll dive into those a little bit, but I want to learn a little bit about you first. What is your libertarian story? Where'd you come from?
I came from the Gary Johnson campaign. So in the 2012 campaign, and I was a Ron Pauler before then, but I was a Ron Pauler, which is different at times from being involved with the Libertarian Party itself.
Sure.
But I joined the Libertarian Party through working on the Gary Johnson campaign. I heard him on the radio, thought he was the only person I was definitely going to vote for. And so I volunteered to help on his campaign. And his campaign needed a little more assistance in Minnesota. And then I was called and they said, "Oh, by the way, you're now directing the campaign in Minnesota." So I was like, really? Well, okay then. And, we pulled it together, and frankly, we kicked ass. And we did really well in Minnesota. And I joined with the Libertarian Party itself at that point, and I've been going full bore with the party ever since.
So how did you end up getting the job at the National Party?
Nepotism. No, I'm kidding.
You're Nick's cousin, aren't you?
Right, exactly. No, I I saw that they were looking for a candidate specialist. So, they weren't specifying at that point. They had the position that you were recruiting candidates and then also assisting them through their campaign itself, start to finish. And, I thought, geez, that is as close to a dream job description as I've ever seen. That's exactly what I want to do and what I've been trying to do. Get more libertarians to run for office and help them during their campaign. So to be able to do this on a national level is amazing. And when they interviewed me for the position, I told them, whether I get this position or you give it to another candidate, I am just so excited. I can't hardly stand it. I'm so happy that the party is ready to take this step. And they did split the position into two, which I think was very smart of them. So I handle the recruitment and getting them onto the ballot and getting them started. And then we will have a candidate campaign specialist that will select certain campaigns that we think we can be really competitive in, or that will be especially prominent. And they will assist them to make sure that they run the best campaign possible.
That's really smart. That's really great to hear, because I'm of the mindset that the Libertarian Party, as good as ballot access is, and I don't disagree that the National Party's job is to get ballot access, the candidate side of things for the National Libertarian Party, and I've been around for 10 years, has really been anemic at the national level. And we're fortunate here in Indiana to have a very robust party that has a lot of institutional knowledge, people who have been involved for 40 years. So, and not every state has that. You do have a lot of turnover at some of these new states. So when you're talking to some of these state parties, I mean, what are they asking for? What are you finding as you talk to state libertarian parties?
It's really running the gamut. We do have some states where their leadership is extremely new, and they don't have a lot of base to draw on, both in knowledge. They've had a big turnover, or, they're kind of reinventing themselves, or they're an emerging state. And they need help from square one. How do I recruit candidates? What should I be asking them? Once someone says they want to be a candidate, what do I do next? So I am assisting some states at that level. And then there's other states where they have everything going full bore. They're doing really excellent. So the types of things they're asking me for are a little higher level. They're getting into discussions of, when we're sending emails to prospective candidates, how do I increase the open and read rate? How do I increase the response rate? How often should I contact them? So we're getting into like smaller, minute things with them just to increase their effectiveness.
Sure.
But one project that I'm working on that and when you're talking about institutional knowledge and being able to pass that on, that is something I'm working really, really hard on. I want to make sure that if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, someone can step into my job and they will have the entire base of knowledge to keep building on. So there's two areas that we're fleshing out right now. Number one, I just finished the candidate workbook. So the candidate workbook will take people through from A to Z on how to do a campaign. And it's in workbook format, so they go through it and you fill in the blanks, and it tells you exactly what to look for, what to do, step by step. It's still fairly basic. I think it's around, minus the appendix, about 50 pages, 50, 60 pages right in there. So it's still pretty basic, but it's focused on the unique challenges that libertarian candidates have.
Right.
And we'll be fleshing that out as we get feedback from our candidates and our campaign managers. And as other libertarians become aware of this workbook and say, I have a really great section on fundraising. Can I send you that so you can put it in the workbook? So that we can have all of this together and it lives on and keeps getting built upon. And we're not having candidates reinvent the wheel, every candidate, every state.
If
thing that we're working on is we're working on a CRM program that states can use. This way, we don't have data in 50 different places. We aren't, please, hopefully soon, not trading Excel spreadsheets back and forth.
That's what they said in 1989. But it's so good. It's so right on. Yeah.
We start testing on Wednesday. So we start testing this on Wednesday with, I believe, 5 states. So this information we will have, it will be a CRM program that actually works within their website, works with national, and it will work really well for candidate recruitment as well, because as people are interested, we can follow their progress right along, and people don't get, lost in the shuffle. There's always someone paying attention to where they are in the process and the help they need, whether that's myself stepping into a system, whether that's the campaign specialist, someone else at national, their regional rep, or whether that is their state political director.
Okay, so I solicited some questions for you from our Facebook page.
I like red wine.
Yeah, some of them are very thoughtful. Other of them, can we get rid of pesky roads? Why are you a statist? Just tell her she's not a real libertarian, see how she reacts. So some of those questions, but some of these are thoughtful. Let's start with Dan Montgomery. He asks, can you give me one reason why I should run as a libertarian candidate?
I can actually give several reasons why someone should run as a libertarian candidate. First of all, it's a message that needs to get out there, that there are alternatives that people can look at, a different way of thinking about things. And this way of thinking, what we talk about as libertarian philosophy is a very engaged, caring, peaceful philosophy. And that's something that people are crying out for. They're a little resistant at first because it is different, but we need to get that message out there. So if you run, if for no other reason than other people hear your message and they start thinking differently about things, they start along that path of non-aggression, they start along that path of, interacting with each other for solutions rather than just hoping, daddy government takes care of it and they don't have to. So that's one reason. But the other reason is you might win. I won my election. I am an elected official as a libertarian. It took me 2 runs, but I got it done.
What office?
I am making lasting changes in my community, and I have completely changed the dynamic on the city council that I serve on.
That's cool. What office did you win?
I am city council for Burnsville, Minnesota. We're about 60,000 people, and we're in the Twin Cities area, so not a small town.
How did you get elected? Explain to the people how you won your election.
I knocked every door. Every door. I knocked 22,000 doors. That's how I won my election. The other way that I won my election is I listened to people instead of telling them. And I was able to give them what libertarian philosophy was in a way that they could easily understand it. And I didn't argue with people. I wasn't trying to, win a debate. What I did was find out what they cared about and worked with that. But really, it was knocking 22,000 doors.
Imagine that, listeners. Interpersonal communication skills and hard work. It's almost like she's been listening to the show.
Right?
It's really all it takes is just some hard work and treat people with kindness and respect, and you'll win. So,
Very much. Yeah.
What Matthew Healy writes, what prior experience and credentials are possessed by the most successful candidates?
You don't have to possess credentials to be a successful candidate. You hit on what you need to be a successful candidate. You need to be willing to go all in on it. You have to put everything you have into it. You have to be willing that even when you are feeling crappy and it's raining and it's, 40 degrees out, you're still going to knock on doors for 8 hours. And the next day on a weekend night, you worked all day, you're going to do it for 4 hours. And then you're going to write thank you notes for 2 hours when you get home. And then you're going to prep your sheets for an hour after that. That's what you're going to do. You have to have good interpersonal skills, and you have to care about people. And you can fake it, but not many people can fake it. Clinton could fake it. He was good at that. That's a skill. Most of us can't do that. And other people know if you care or you don't care. They can tell. But the other thing is, you got to fundraise. You got to have money. Now, I am not a wealthy person. It's not like I could just self-fund. You got to fundraise.
All right, so Kyle O'Neill asks, what is the LP doing to specifically combat the notion that voting anything other than Dem or Republican for a larger election is a lost cause and a wasted vote? Now, I know that this is not your specific scope, but I'm sure as you were talking to people, as you were recruiting candidates, the wasted vote syndrome, I'm sure, is something that you run into a lot. So how do you answer that question? If I run, am I wasting my time because I'm going to lose anyways?
Well, first of all, if you run, you haven't wasted your time unless you decided to do nothing. Then you might have wasted your time. But as to the question, the wasted vote syndrome, that is starting to change. And I think we're going to see that change more and more on the larger tickets. But first, we have to have candidates willing to consistently get on the ballot. What needs to happen is a couple things. First of all, voters need to regularly see a libertarian line on the ballot. When things are printed in an official form, suddenly they're real and they're valid. That's just how people work. The other thing that we need to do is we need to run serious campaigns, and we need to get included in debates. Televised debates, whether that's, all the way up to, U.S. Senate, you need to be included in those debates. And we need to raise hell until we get our candidates included in those debates. If you're not running a serious campaign, don't expect them to include you in the debate. If you're running a serious campaign, you're still going to have to fight very hard to get included. When those two things start happening with more regularity, that will break the I have to vote for this or this.
Now, I think Paul is alluding to a certain Senate race currently, but Paul Robbins Jr. asks, what sort of vetting process do we have for candidates, specifically to look at any potential criminal history that ultimately may damage the campaign and the party?
That depends on the state. For some states, the party has absolutely nothing they can do. If a candidate gets on the ballot and puts libertarian or whatever next to their name, there's nothing you can do. You have no legal recourse whatsoever. We can't screen them. We can't do anything about them. If they fulfill the requirements of their state, they're on. Other states, they have to be signed off on by the state party. And unless the state party, signs off on them, then they're not allowed. State chapters work independently. So there may be a case where a state signs off on a candidate, perhaps national wouldn't, or vice versa. That could happen as well. Those are things that we're going to have to face on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, the Indiana State Party, so my goal in 2010, when I was the executive director of the state party, full-time executive director, and my job was to recruit candidates, And we had a goal of 100 people on the ballot, and we met that goal. I think only Texas surpassed us that year. They were very strong that year, but we got darn close, considering they're so much bigger. And we ran a lot of great candidates, and we had a lot of not great candidates. And we had one instance where the local alternative news magazine called Nuvo, our alternative weekly, put out a voter's guide, and maybe a quarter of our candidates actually filled the thing out, and one of them had a headshot. And this is a core, in an alternative weekly, that's a core audience, and so they just embarrassed us, and instead of because none of them had headshots, they just put J.C. Penney models. So we had. So I went to the Central Committee that next year, and I said, running a bunch of candidates isn't always a great strategy, because we're getting mocked by outlets that should, and voters that should be natural allies of ours. So in 2012, we put together a candidate vetting form and asked everybody to fill out this form. It was very basic information, just like a job application, some very simple answers about basic philosophy. And then I made those documents available to everyone at the state convention so they could read those. And we implemented one key thing, which was the candidate had to have two party officers, either county chair or state party officer, like a state central committee member or the chair, sign their document. And that way at least two people in the room knew and had a conversation with that person. Because so often in the Libertarian Party, the sad reality is somebody shows up to the state convention, they go, "You're up, go ahead." And that happened. They didn't use the vetting form in 2016, and we had a guy who tried fusion. He was using us and the Republicans to sue the Supreme Court of Indiana for fusion voting, which is you can run on two parties. We don't have that here, and we don't want to be a part of that. So in 2018 and beyond, the State Central Committee has actually adopted that as an official policy moving forward, which is great. And that's one way that Cara's right. It's really up to the local party to vet candidates, because it's extremely expensive to do a lot of background checks. The Republicans and Democrats a lot of times don't do background checks. It's based on who works their way up. So for those state parties and local parties out there, I would recommend contacting the LPIN or going to their website for that candidate vetting form and then instituting that in your local area, because it's important to know who's running. And those documents, there were some people that just they turned in some crazy socialist stuff, and I just seemed to lose their paperwork, but then everybody else at the convention got a chance to read all of what they thought. I was more organized as a state office because I had everybody's information. We made headshots a mandatory thing and a website. We hooked them up with a website and headshot day. So these are just some of the basic things, and are there requirements? How are you handling requirements? Because as the national party, it's not really your job to dictate to local parties what they can or can't do, but what are some of the requirements or recommendations that you make for first-time candidates?
Mainly I want to know if someone is a first-time candidate, if they've never run as a candidate at all, and also they've never run as a libertarian before. And then that's information that I note, because as we get people who express interest, or I talk to them and they express interest, I do get a little bit of information from them, but really I try to connect them to their state party as soon as possible. And then I do note, this is the new candidate. They've not run before. And then that should be the state party's cue to take a closer look, and also know that this person is probably going to need a little more assistance. I know that libertarians get a little touchy when a candidate runs that they, may have an issue with their past, or they have problematic stances on certain issues, and they say, "Oh, geez, we just don't have our crap together." Look at the headlines any given day for Republicans and Democrats. Judge Moore, I'm looking at you. They have their issues too. This is not unique to our party. It's not anything different, and they have far more infrastructure, money, time, everything in place, and they're not able to do it. So just have the understanding that we're all humans. Things like this are going to happen, but do your best to put processes in place to do the best job that you can. You want great quality candidates, and you want to be able to support those candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the questions that are asked by first-time candidates?
You know, first-time candidates, they have a ton of questions. You know, they want to know, how do I file? What do I need to do to get on the ballot? Should I be throwing up my website right now? Who do I talk to? You know, they want to know absolutely everything, because many of them just have this idea. They want to run. They haven't investigated it very much. They kind of have an idea. And many of them aren't sure which office they're going to run for. They have an idea, but they're also open to other suggestions. And this is also where state parties can help guide these first-time candidates. Sometimes after talking with a candidate and you find out the issues that they're passionate about, you realize that the race that they're planning to run is at the wrong level, because the issues that they are interested in aren't impacted at that level. You know, whether they're looking at running as a, you know, statewide candidate or federal level or local level, you need to help guide your candidates into the proper level office that would work for them. So that's a way that they can really assist their first-time candidates. But they're looking for everything from, how do I fundraise? How the heck am I going to win this election? There's, you know, 40,000 people in my town. I can't talk to every single person. How do I get this down to a manageable number? And so, you know, you start to have the conversations with them about, you know, targeting likely voters, things like that. So they have every question. But
it's so funny when you're a first-time candidate. I mean, I probably dealt with a couple hundred those 4 years. Like, I noticed two things about first-time candidates, and they're just really kind of, to me, insecurities that are easily overcome once you just start the process. First, they didn't want to embarrass libertarianism. They didn't feel like they knew enough about the philosophy, and they didn't want to make other people look bad that they're in the foxhole with. Secondly, they didn't feel like they had enough knowledge on how to run a campaign. And there's a lot of great material out there on how to run for office, both within the Libertarian Party without now, especially in the internet age. You know, and it's great to have just, I don't know, a Sherpa like yourself to kind of help those people. And I would just say, if you're thinking about running for office, you're not going to regret it. But you're going to regret it. You're going to have days where you just go, I don't know why I did this, but every fall when that weather changes, you're going to go, I wish I were knocking on doors again, because it is a ton of fun. I mean, would you disagree? I mean, it is running for office. What was your experience running for office like?
So much hard work, but so great. You meet so many incredible people, and I have made lasting friendships through my runs for office. And, you know, when I was out door knocking, and many people are a little concerned about door knocking, you know, what's the reception going to be? You know, are people going to be mean to them? No, for the most part, people are exceptionally kind. I mean, here you are, you've just randomly shown up on their doorstep. They're probably eating dinner. They didn't wake up that morning going, gee, you know what I wish would happen to me today? I wish a candidate would knock on my door. Right. That didn't happen. And yet, when you knock on their door, most of them are very polite. They do want you to get to the point. So I'll give you that hint. But they're really interested and willing to take some time with you, because they do want to do a good job at the polls. You know, so the fact that you showed up means a lot to them because most candidates will not. They will not knock on their door. And they want to find out more about you. But even more than your positions, they're judging you as a person. But it was very interesting. You know, you hear some really amazing stories. I met people who had bought their home. Well, they had it built, and here we are in a major metropolitan area, and they were telling me about when they built their home and it was a gravel road and what that was like and the changes that have happened to the city. So hearing stories like that is pretty amazing.
So the other thing that I found is that some people, they want to start big.
Yeah, they do.
And I mean, if somebody wants to run for office, but they're not sure where, or even if they're thinking about starting big, I mean, where do you try to push people?
You know, I really try to gauge where their interests lie and then have them go in that direction. And also understand what their frustration level is. And by that, I mean, if they shoot for the moon and they run for governor, if they aren't elected, are they going to rage quit everything? You know, because if that's the case, we don't want to burn someone out. We don't want to burn someone that has a lot of energy and enthusiasm. You know, you don't want to burn them out on something like that. So, you know, you try to assess that as well. But really, it's just trying to help them find their spot. That's really what you're trying to do.
Sure.
And make that work for them.
Yeah, I've always recommended run for a local race, but there are some people they couldn't be less interested in local politics, and they want to run for national office.
Yeah, and they have no interest, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and other people, after you talk to them, you know, and also once you explain the extreme level of power that local offices hold over everyone's daily life, they get very interested in running for local office. And I do suggest to states as well as candidates, take a look at your local offices, not just mayor or city council. There are other positions like water commissioner. There is land and soil. You know, there are positions like that oftentimes there is no challenger for, and sometimes there's no one on the ballot at all for that office. And if a libertarian was on the line, you win by default. So take a look at those types of offices and realize that those offices, especially those hidden ones, have an immense amount of power. Immense.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea for every Libertarian Party person, or even, I mean, if you're a Republican Party person or a Democratic Party person or an independent-minded person listening to this, if you're a citizen, go to your county clerk's office and ask for what will be up for election in the next cycle or the next two cycles if they have it prepared. Get to know your county clerk. County clerks usually are completely mystified on Libertarian Party election law, which is why you need your state party to be really good friends with your Indiana State Election Division, because when the clerks don't do the things the right way, then you need the election division to call and police them a little bit. But yeah, find out what offices are available, so when somebody contacts you and says, I want to run for an office, well, here's the list of offices that are up, and that's something that Indiana's always posted is, here are the, you know we have township trustee board positions up this year, and this is the most local office you can run for, and if you only have to knock on 1,500 doors, and you can do that in the summer, like. So that's one thing that I think that local people can do, both parties, county chairs, just regular people. You may be a libertarian out there not realizing that there's going to be an office that will go unfilled, and a party the Democrats or Republicans will fill it, and you could have been elected to it had you done a little due diligence this December or January. So I think that's a great point, is go check out what is available and see if you can't get yourself elected.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now,
and
go ahead.
You can do it through hard work. Those ones you can absolutely do through hard work. Yeah, when you've got 1,500 doors, you can knock those 3 times.
Absolutely. And you're talking about raising $200 or $300 for the printed flyers. I mean, we're not talking about rocket surgery here.
No.
Mike Trump.
No, absolutely.
So there's 2 types of sales. There's the inbound sales, somebody sitting on a phone answering the inbound, and then there's the outbound salesperson that goes out and drives around and tries to get new business. And that's kind of what Mike is asking. Do you often look outside the party for candidates, or are you strictly recruiting from within? And I know you've got a goal of 2,000 candidates this year, so how are you going to find those 2,000 candidates?
Yes. So, I am answering inbound calls. So that is definitely one thing I'm doing. So we are looking primarily within the party, whether they are a national party member or they are a state party member. But we're also looking at people who just simply don't know they're libertarians yet. They just haven't quite realized it yet. But they're on that path towards liberty. And so we're talking to them and assisting them along the way. And it may be, and for some of them, they have talked to either Republicans or the Democrats about running for office, and those parties rejected them because of their stances on certain issues. And that's when they realize, well, dang, I always thought I was a Republican or a Democrat, but I'm not. So what the heck am I? And that's when they're realizing that, no, they really are a libertarian. And then they're starting to, either contact us, or we're hearing about them and we're contacting them.
Well, speaking of which, how do people contact you if they want to run for office?
They can email me, which is my name, Cara, Cara, Schulz, Schulz, at lnc.org. That is probably the best way to get a hold of me. Or you can always hit me up on Facebook. I'm always on Facebook. I try to keep it up all the time. I get a lot of messages through there.
You need to get like a candidates at LP, because there's so many different misspellings. That's Cara.SCHULZ. Yeah, and if they hit the candidates at lnc.org, they're going to get me too. Awesome. There we go. Yeah. So, be sure to get in touch with Cara. I'm gonna let you finish with your elevator pitch. Give us your best pitch on why somebody should run as a Libertarian Party candidate. People should run as a Libertarian candidate because they can get that message of liberty out there to people. They can get it out there to a wider number of people than they can do just ranting on Facebook or posting tweets on Twitter. And they can do it in a way that affects policy. Whether they're elected or not, their conversation will affect policy in their area. And you never know. You could get elected. Yeah, it's not impossible. And like you said, you had to run twice. And I think I met with a candidate recently, and I said, you should really plan on running 2 or 3 times for this office. Yep. And it's totally possible to win, but it may take you 2 or 3 cycles, and you have to be engaged in your community, and then you can win. It's not impossible. Absolutely. Most candidates do not win their first election, and I don't care if you're a Libertarian, a Republican, a Democrat, it doesn't matter. Most of them do not win the first time they run for office. That's just how it is. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Cara. Again, candidates at lnc.org. You bet. All right. Hit her up. Thanks so much for watching here on We Are Libertarians. You can find more about us at wearelibertarians.com, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.